Hello.
You're talking to me. Hello.
No, not yet. It's this is my third sweaty gorilla interview. First one was in Jersey, beside the sauna. Second one was the Mont Blanc discussion with Sebastian about the French paradox. So now I'm super fortunate to be here with Nick Vitulli from New York in the US, who now lives in Colorado, where he's opening a center, which is what we're going to talk about. And currently we're sitting beside the Ganges in Rishikesh, where the monsoon season is about to start, which is why Nick and I are looking very wet, because we got caught in a big downpour. As you can see, some of the steam coming off the Ganges River. And you'll hear a lot of whooping in the background because a lot of rafts which come down the Ganges now. But really what I want to talk to Nick about today is the center he's opening up, which will be in Colorado, which I think, and I don't know much about the center, Nick and I have been on a 6-week course in the foothills of the Himalayas, about a 45-minute hair-raising drive from here through goat tracks to a yoga school where Nick and I were doing a course on Jyotish, which is a 6,000-year-old Vedic astrology science, and we were doing it in incredible detail. And we'll talk a little bit to Nick about what he got out of that later on, but I really want to focus to start on what Nick is doing with this center that he's building in Colorado. And we'll see why I'm so passionate about what he's doing and why he's so passionate about doing it. So, Nick, I think you said before that the center is called Mycelia. Can you tell us a little bit about why Colorado, why Mycelia, and ultimately take us on the journey to your motivation for putting an enormous amount of work into this center that you're developing?
Yeah. Thank you, Greg. Mycelia, it's so my journey to Colorado, my life circumstances put me in a position where I was very close to dying from what I would consider a self-imposed crisis, right? Alcoholism is addiction, substance use disorder. It's a way that people present who have difficulty coping with underlying trauma, which can come from stimuli in different times in your life. A lot of, actually this would be jumping, but there's a couple places that are working very closely with ibogaine, which is a very useful medicine from Africa that is from the iboga plant. And there is a documentary actually that I won't plug it necessarily, but there's a documentary that focuses on this group of Navy SEALs that had, they were fucked up. Can we swear on this thing?
I don't know.
Oh, all right.
I don't. We'll see what YouTube says.
YouTube. So. You can't? Okay. They weren't doing well.
They were troubled.
They were troubled. They were troubled individuals. And they, everybody thinks that people are troubled that have served in active military because of what they've seen in active duty, which is definitely, that definitely doesn't help. But what we see in the journey of these different men is that it actually started way earlier than that, and the motivation for joining the military came from something that started way before that. So the work that they were doing at this place was more root. That's where the location was. The people's things kind of start. And like from Greg just mentioned, we were just learning Jyotish, which comes from the Vedic tradition. And in the Vedic tradition, in most indigenous cultures, there's a belief that we're, not that they're actually asked this question to our teacher. It's not a conscious, intellectual decision that we make, but we come here to move through stuff karmically, like karma. That idea, the concept of karma is wildly misunderstood, actually. But we have things that we're here to move through. And the circumstances into which we are born, which is what we're looking at when we're looking at Jyotish, the constellation on the horizon, very important, and where the other planets are in the sky when you're born, also very important. And whether or not that's chosen or intentional, it dictates your entire life.
Well, tell me why you said you called the centre mycelia.
Yeah.
So talk us a little bit about why you chose the word.
Well,
what does
name,
mycelia mean, and what relevance does it have to your centre?
So mycelia, the name, and actually the decision to move to Colorado. So dying of alcoholism, there are very few solutions that help, and the only thing that seems to work for people that are dying of what I called earlier a self-imposed limitation or self-imposed crisis is developing a relationship with something bigger than you. And I was doing that through different ways, and I got a very clear direction to move to Colorado when I was I was living in Los Angeles, and I was in the Tetons in Wyoming, northwest Wyoming, and I got a direction. It's like it said, you need to move to Colorado now, and I didn't really understand why. And then I got in that same place in the Tetons, I got the name mycelia on a 7-hour hike that I got the name pretty quickly in the first 7 minutes of the hike. And I was like, well, that's a great name, but I'll just keep going. And then when I came back, it was the same name. So the mycelium network, mycelial network, I said those 3 different versions because there's 3 different versions depending on what you're reading. It's the network of roots that connects all the living things on the planet, all the plants and trees.
Is it particular to fungi? I know a lot about mold, but not necessarily fungus in the ground. Is it fungal mycelium that communicates, or the plants? We know from science that the plants use roots to communicate with each other, and they use sound to communicate with each other, which is why if there's an insect threat or a microbe threat, the plants can signal each other, and the plants conjointly start producing therapeutic substances which can help prevent the attack from the disease or the insect. So plants can do that through their roots system and through sound and vibration. We're going to talk a little bit about sound and vibration because that's where Nick and I kind of have a joining of the heart because of my work with the mitochondria. Because everybody knows Nick and I are communicating now as much through biophotonic light, vibration, electromagnetic frequencies as we are through language. And this is where the Jyotish comes in, because we know that the planets in the solar system also produce electromagnetic frequencies, biophotonic light and vibrations, which are also communicating with our 100 quadrillion microantennae on body, which can pick up those energy communications. So, but is mycelium peculiar to the massive fungal networks in the ground? Because I know they can go for hundreds of miles from one fungal.
Yeah, it's all the same.
Okay.
People often refer to, when they think of mycelia or mycelium, they're thinking of mushrooms because that's it's effectively what's presenting on the surface. But everything is connected through this network, this energetic network, just like we were talking about. So everything is connected that way, and we as human beings think we're real special, and we're different than other things in nature, and we think that we're these isolated, independent entities that need to take it upon ourselves to make sure that we have the life experience that we'd like. And the concept that if we tap into the collective and we work on healing the collective, I mean, you can start with yourself. That's really kind of all you can do initially. Work on healing yourself, and then hope that by you being a healed person, especially if you come from a past that wasn't so healed or healing, you can then affect other people. So the way that 12-step recovery works is that one alcoholic or addict of food or sex or amphetamines or opiates or whatever can help somebody else that has the same thing that they have.
So, and when you talked before about some of the most PTSD or addiction being self-imposed, how do you relate that to somebody? I remember that Jordan Peterson video that a lot of people have seen, where he says that people with PTSD have malevolence, and malevolence is where you realize that somebody or some organization or something is on purpose trying to harm you. And he said you're never the same again after getting PTSD from malevolence. So for somebody like my brother who was in the military, how is the fact that it might be superimposed, the fact that, as who was the guy in World War II who wrote the book about being in concentration camps?
Viktor Frankl.
Viktor Frankl, that
Man's Search for Meaning.
Man's Search for Meaning, that it's not the event that you go through, it's the meaning that you give to it. And that was the whole part of his book. Is that where you're coming from when you're saying that this PTSD addiction phenomenon, which is an enormous problem in the world now, that's where the self-imposed aspect of it comes from, because of the meaning you've chosen about it?
Yeah, and I suppose by labeling things that are debilitating and deadly as being self-imposed, people might get really upset about that, actually. And I'm speaking from personal experience, so I suppose what I'm sharing is my experience and my observation of working with people that have gotten to a place where what they were doing, when we reach for something external to change how we're feeling inside, to the point where it stops working and then it's just killing us, and then that doesn't work anymore. So then a viable solution might be suicide for some people, and unfortunately that's been the case for some people that were very close to me in my life, still are very close to me in my life. I'm one of those people that believes that, when the physical form drops, the energy, the Atman still lives. And he's getting our friend.
Next, oh yeah, well I wasn't, but Di. Say hello everybody. Diane, who lives near me on the Gold Coast, happily sitting there while Nick and I make this video, watching everybody bathe in the Ganges, which is a national pastime. So
we have football.
So
in America.
Yeah.
Dunking in the Ganga.
Yeah.
They say Ganga here, by the way. I love that you're like the Ganges.
Ganga. Am I old school or?
No. Well, in India they say Ganga. So
Ganga.
It's like
Ma Ganga.
Ma Ganga.
Mother Ganges.
Okay.
Ganga. So
conversation about Ganga versus Ganges.
So
I love that you say Ganges. It makes me very happy.
I'm pleased you're happy, Dick. So we've had 6 weeks. We've had a lot of fun together, and Nick and a friend of ours, Eric, we all had Royal Enfield motorbikes here. So we've had some great adventure on the classic Royal Enfield motorbikes, including going to some caves full of bats for meditation. So it's been a lot of fun, but run us through a bit more specifically now the clinic. What's the series of events? Because in Jyotish looks at the life cycle, your birth into life as an incarnation, and going through the series of life and finally ending up in the 12th house where you transition to the next life. So take us through, is there any kind of systematic approach in the mycelium clinic that you're going to be using to help people recover from their addiction and PTSD? Because I know psychedelics are a big part of that, but I'm sure it's not the only part. So run us through the sequence that somebody might go through by tuning up to the clinic today.
Okay. Well, first we're not going to call it a clinic. That's far too medicinal, far too. It's a healing center. It's more of a retreat center. That's effectively how it's going to be set up. And the thing about that is that there isn't a specific. There's no plan of action. There's no protocol. You're a doctor. Think of the what is the word that I'm looking for? If somebody comes in with presenting with certain things, what is the thing called? You're gonna edit
assessment.
Yeah, no, not the assessment. There's no plan of action. There's no.
Well, no, this is fascinating. The whole interviews like this aren't meant to be formal. They're meant to be, you're seeing us in real time, trying to come with an idea of how to approach people like this. But in medicine there is. In medicine there's a very formal assessment process. It's take a history, do a full examination, come up with a diagnosis and a differential diagnosis, and then come up with a plan to get people better. That's drummed us into the start. So I imagine you are going to have a system like that. They're not just going to rock up at the front door and start chewing on magic mushrooms. I'm sure there's going to be a process where they will be assessed, a diagnosis made, and then you're going to come up for a plan with people. Or is it not? Maybe it's not. Maybe we just turn up and we do some ayahuasca. Iboga?
No ayahuasca. Ayahuasca, in my opinion, should be kept in the jungle and served by the people that have been serving it for generations. That's my opinion, but there are plenty of people serving it in more urban environments who got their shaman license at a warehouse in Los Angeles, and they're serving the medicine. That medicine specifically is, I mean, all of these medicines, they're ancient, technologies that have been around as long, probably longer, but as long as there have been people, there's been yoga. And there's also, so these are ancient technologies, the things that we're doing, that we've been learning, Kriya.
Is there going to be yoga as part of the treatment program?
Yeah, that's part of it too. That's what we're doing here. Well, that's what I'm doing here in India. So, okay, what I was trying to say is that there's no one size fits all solution.
Okay, so what you're saying is going to be individualized.
Yeah.
The treatment program will be individualized, which
Yes.
makes a lot of sense, because every addiction very different to PTSD, obviously, in the approach that you're going to have.
Well, and not everybody that shows up is going to be presenting with substance use disorder.
Okay, so what's my first question? Who's coming?
People that are interested in doing something different. I think the majority of the clientele will have been trying to do several things over the course of a life, and they've been unsuccessful because there isn't really an effective treatment model.
Sure, but they're not coming with a broken ankle. What
No.
are they? Is it mainly addiction and PTSD? Is that the main goal, the main client base you'll be seeing?
I wouldn't say primarily. I'd say people that are blocked, doing things that they don't want to do anymore and they can't seem to stop, or not doing things that they would like to do but they can't seem to start doing. So that's effectively kind of the criteria. And obviously to the extent that it's ruining their life is a bit dramatic, but in a lot of cases it will be. And that's where substance use disorder in general is really useful, is that you, to me, from where I'm sitting, my perspective, is that you have people that know that they're going to die. It's a terminal condition. Alcoholism, addiction, it's a terminal condition. And a lot of people don't know that that's what they're dealing with. And again, my personal experience, which is why I think that I'm effective in this arena, and by working in this arena and then through observation, it is a terminal condition, and you don't die. It's not a measured course that you're gonna die, but you're gonna slowly or quickly. You're gonna overdose or kill yourself, or over time you're gonna, through liver failure, organ failure in general, and on the way down the tree you're hitting every single branch and alienating everybody that loves you because they can't stand to watch you kill yourself anymore. And then sometimes people just hang themselves, or they overdose because they've been trying to quit opiates for a while, and then when people OD, when they're coming from opiate overdose, it's typically people that have been trying to stop and they've managed to go a period of time without using, and then they can't, they succumb to the desire, and then they get high again, and then it's too much for their system, and then they die. So addiction is a terminal condition. You can live with it. Actually, heroin addiction, you can live with for a long time. You just don't try to quit. You can for years and years and years. Unless they shake it up on you and there's no heroin available and it's just fentanyl, and that's why Prince and Tom Petty are dead. These are a lot of very strong opinions that I'm just putting out there.
Well, it's the Sweaty Gorilla videos are informal because we want emotions coming from the heart. You can talk about PTSD and addiction very clinically, but those people, like my brother, didn't have a clinical problem. They had a biochemical, emotional mirage, a myriad of mycelial misconnections, if you like. And I think that's one of the things I discovered, was that you and I have basically, through our spiritual work, have approached the concept of radical surrendered optimism. But to do that, you have to have a level of, is that steam coming off? Look at the steam coming off the gauges.
It's also raining on us now.
Yeah, it's raining. You have to have a
He
level.
doesn't have a problem with water.
You
He
have
has
to.
no issues being
No,
wet.
no.
He's walking around in the rain with his socks.
That's why I love
my mind.
I love the I love the water so much. My brother is in the water now. We scattered his ashes in the water. I am in the water as often as I can because that's where I feel closest to him. It's very, very powerful for me. But with addiction and PTSD, there's probably a rewiring of some of the mycelial circuits in the brain, I think. And we've seen that with SPECT scans and functional MRIs, and that includes ADHD and some of the disorders of childhood. So I think one of the things that medicine and science is moving towards is rewiring those, because you can see the mycelial networks in the brain have been, the wiring is different, it has been changed, which is why I think has started this big interest in psychedelics in particular, because they're known to rewire the brain. And you and I have both seen those MRI scans where they've looked at brain wiring connections before and after the use of psilocybin, and the psilocybin dramatically reconnects the brain. Is that, wow, look at that. We're so lucky to be here.
It's pretty
So
crazy.
lucky.
It's pretty insane.
Is that why you're embracing the psychedelic use in the clinic?
Yeah, and there's a lot, because it's so recent. I would say that people have been using these things in a controlled therapeutic environment. People are still have the war on drugs perspective on psychedelics, which is not useful because they're very useful. They're very useful medicines if used in the proper set and setting, which you hear people say that all the time.
Okay,
So-
well, let's talk about that a little, because that's what I really want to get into. So I think science has accepted that some of the psychedelics are very valuable in rewiring the brain, that miswiring of the brain, and both my parents had Alzheimer's disease, and that's not a rewiring problem, it's more of a loss of cellular problem, but there could be some role for some of the neurodegenerative diseases as well. But certainly encouraging more mycelium and changing the wiring of the mycelium is going to be a big part of work going forward with PTSD and addiction. And I think what you alluded to there was these aren't medicines that you go home with a prescription with your doctor for and take a tablet every day. This has got to be part of a comprehensive, probably almost inpatient program where it's multifactorial, a multi-therapeutic approach. So we said that yoga, and remember, yoga is not just about asanas or the body postures. Nick and I have been here for 6 weeks doing yoga every day, but that's been much more pranayama or breath work perhaps, and kriya movements and mudras and mantras than it is, standing on our shoulders. So tell us a little bit, as we're going to come to an end because we're going to start raining a lot by the gauge you see. Tell us a little bit about, because we get the idea of it's a retreat in Colorado, just what a sensational place to have it. I think location is important as well, because we're sitting beside a river in one of the magical places in the world, and nobody comes to Ma Ganga.
There you go, Ma Ganga.
Nobody comes to Rishikesh and doesn't go home profoundly affected by the environment they're in. So I think environment's very important, which is why you're setting up the centre. Yoga, I assume pranayama, breath work, meditation will be part of the process. Run us through some of the other modalities.
So the property that I'm buying it's in the mountains in Colorado. It's beautiful. So a big part of it is nature immersion, and there's three primary modalities. One is psychedelics, and we're going to operate under the legal framework of Colorado. I didn't really get to finish that story, but I didn't know why I was moving to Colorado, and now I do. The only places in the states currently where you can use psilocybin assisted therapy legally in a therapeutic environment is in Colorado and Oregon. So we'll operate under that framework. There's some federal laws that have been shifting recently, and there's funding going towards psychedelic research, and there might be other medicines available to us fairly soon, and we'll be prepared to offer them. But at the moment, we're just starting with We're starting with psilocybin. And ketamine is also legal, but we're not going to be serving anything synthetic. Ketamine is wonderful for crisis management. If somebody is actively homicidal or suicidal, great thing to get them out of that, but it's not. We talked a little bit about, you were talking about the efficacy of different medicines, the neuroplasticity. The neuroplasticity malleability is what you're working with these medicines. So with ketamine, you have 24 to 48 hours, maybe 72 hours, I think. My ex-girlfriend has a psychedelics practice that focuses specifically on ketamine, of neuroplasticity malleability. So that's an opportunity to lay a new groundwork, lay a new foundation to operate from. Because these things, these ideas, the way that we move through life are etched into our operating system through neural pathways. So with ketamine, you have that amount of time. With psilocybin, you have 14 to 28 days. I think with ayahuasca, you have 6 weeks, maybe longer. And the thing that's really kind of got everybody in a tizzy these days is ibogaine, and the reason for that is because you have up to 6 months of neuroplasticity malleability, which is a lot of time to lay a new foundation, lay new groundwork, and to establish a new place to operate from. So it's shifting, it's evolving our perspective from what it used to be to what it could be. And a lot of people go to different places and they sit with these medicines and they have a wonderful, profound experience, but then they come back to their lives. If, let's say, they go to Colombia and they sit in the jungle for 10 days and have a crazy, experience with the cosmos, with the infinite, with the collective conscious, with seeing God, and then they're profoundly shifted. But then they go back to New York City where their family lives and where they work on Wall Street, and pretty quickly they are back. They're back to exactly where they were before because they haven't really dealt with the core wound in an effective way. So we will be serving these medicines as a way to kind of open the door a little bit, crack the window. But what's really going to be useful to people is to solidify the intention effectively with a daily sadhana, daily practice of that we're learning here. So it's Kriya, it's a lot of breath work, pranayama. Asana is going to be part of it for sure, because you want to move the energy that you're generating through the pranayama, and Kriyas are incorporating mudra, mantra, movements for specific periods of time, and breath, a lot of breath. And so you're generating a lot of prana, and then you want to integrate that into your physical body with asana. So yoga, daily yoga practice, daily asana, daily sadhana is going to be, in my opinion, the most important part of the program. And we're doing a Jyotish reading on arrival, along with the rest of the intake things that we have clinicians. We have a whole clinical department also that's focused largely on internal family systems and EMDR. So IFS and EMDR are pretty effective trauma therapy treatment modalities. We'll have a clinical component. We'll have the yogic part of it, which is the whole thing is yoga, life is yoga, and then the psychedelic component. So those are the three primary components of what my CV is going to be.
Look, Marganga. It's amazing.
Marganga.
How lucky are
The
we?
Ganges.
I'm a Kiwi. Pause. Nutrition. Let's close. I want to close with two things. I want to close with nutrition, and I want to close with mountains. Is there a nutritional?
Doesn't sound like we're closing.
Is there a nutritional component to the clinic?
Yes, one of my business partners, who's a very dear friend of mine, who is responsible for shifting my perspective on life and God and spirituality, who took me through a text that was very effective for me at the time. He's our chief science officer. He's a PhD in epidemiology, I think. He could tell you better than I. He's very scientific. But he's been working in nutrition for I don't know, like 20 years, a long time. He's been working with a lot of people in early recovery, because when people are in active addiction, they're destroying their microbiome, their gut health is atrocious. So we're going to be focusing a lot on that and seeing what it is that people need. And again, it's bespoke treatment. It's a limited capacity. There's 25 people maximum, because that's the most amount of people that you can effectively treat one-on-one. without it turning into a cookie cutter thing. In my opinion, maybe I'm wrong, but this was a thing that was downloaded, so it has really nothing to do with me. I'm just the vehicle executing it. But
Nick gets downloads.
We all get downloads. You just got to be. Are you open? Are you available? Now it's starting to rain. Now it's really starting to rain.
Let's finish it up. Now, before we go to mountains, thank you for the nutrition component. Of course, you know me, and I'm sure that after our long discussions about the mitochondria and melatonin, I'm sure that light therapy will be a big part of the clinic. If it's not before this video, it will be after, because I'm sure the melatonin, we've talked about, you and I had a long discussion about 1.5 billion year history of melatonin being unchanged in that time, and how important it is for brain health and hormone health. And obviously blue artificial light after it gets dark at night switches off the melatonin. And do you think you're going to be incorporating red light therapy and circadian rhythms into, look at that,
J-Ma.
Into your Colorado clinic?
Yes.
Excellent.
We're going to do a bunch of biohacking things that will be part of it. We'll offer everything that has proven efficacy, really, that isn't, that's legal. So again, it's bespoke treatment. So whatever, it might not work for everybody. That might not be appropriate for every single human being, every single Atman. But a combination of the things that we'll offer should be. And if we feel that they won't be, then there's plenty of other places that you can go to. You know what I mean? Like we're gonna offer what we offer as well as it can be, and we're gonna have as many options as are reasonable, and that'll be one of them.
Okay, let's close this up then finally with another subject, particularly because of my 5M philosophy. That's the concept of mountains, and why I like mountains so much. And we're surrounded by the Himalayan mountains here. And of course, coming from New Zealand, I often take motorbike trips in the South Island through the mountains of the South Island, particularly Aoriki, Mount Cook, which I have a strong family association with because my uncle used to fly rescue planes into the mountains to rescue injured divers, rescue injured climbers. I think there's power in mountains. That's from a spiritual perspective. That's from a scientific perspective. And the scientific perspective is at altitude, the mitochondria, one, you're closer to the atmosphere, but your 1 quadrillion mitochondria are more sensitive at altitude, and the electrons and the protons, the electron flow along the inner mitochondrial membrane, the proton pumping, and the slight hypoxia optimize mitochondrial function. So I think they work better as micro antennae to communicate with the light and the electromagnetic frequencies and the vibrations that we're getting from the atmosphere. So that's my connection with the mountains. That's why I feel so much at peace in the mountains, which is very, as Nick said at the start, a very Saturn aspect of spirituality in Jyotish. Tell me why you chose to put the clinic, particularly at altitude, in Colorado.
You keep saying that I chose anything. I didn't choose anything. This was if I was choosing it, I would have chose something less expensive. It's a beautiful property.
Okay,
built 100 years ago.
Okay. So, but you could have put your clinic in the middle of New York if you wanted to.
It's not a clinic.
You could have put your retreat in the middle of New York, but you chose not to. Why did you choose? Well, you didn't choose. Why were you drawn? Why were you pulled? I didn't really choose to go to the yoga center that I have done Jyotish at. It's a long story for another video, but I was pulled there. I was pushed there by other people because they thought it was the right place for me. Why were you, let's say, directed or drawn to the mountains of Colorado for your healing retreat center, not a clinic, healing retreat center in the mountains of Colorado? And you better ask me to come along and talk there one time because I want to come and visit you there. Okay, so take us home with that Nick Vitulli.
You
Just inviting myself.
Well, you just invited yourself, but you're totally invited. But you also just explained why that spot is chosen. There's, I mean, it's 8,000 feet almost above sea level, nestled in the comfortable Rocky Mountains for a reason. There are things that happen at elevation that won't happen at sea level, and there's things that'll happen in nature. Nature immersion is a very important part of this. That land, grandfather energy land, is very powerful energetically, and it's the perfect place for what it is that we're doing, which is why I'm this whole process of getting it rezoned and all that has not been easy, but it's everything is very intentional, and it has very little to do with what it is that I want. That's my answer to that.
Okay, well, it's a beautiful way to finish. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. Remember, never give up. Remember, if you like the video, give it a like on YouTube and share it with people, because it's good to get this information out, because a lot of people in today's society struggling with problems that they would be drawn to a retreat/healing center in the mountains like Nick, who's going through a lot of work, is providing. Thank you very much, Nick, for your time. We're going to go have some lovely dinner by Ma Ganga in Rishikesh before we all head in our separate directions. Any last words, Nick?
Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Peace and love. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
From Rishikesh. Bye.